Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Sierra Cast TV broadcast. And today we are talking about Women's History Month. And I'm with Reverend Doretha Jackson. So both of us will be having a discussion on how important it is for us women this month or just overall in general. We've all experienced such a big change the past year. Moms are working from home, children are home, so you're balancing so many different aspects of life, from motherhood to being a wife to being your own self, being a daughter, being a granddaughter, a niece, depending on all the roles that you're fulfilling within your community or within your household. Um, we want to honor all of you and let you know that you, of course, are appreciated, especially for those that do not hear it. What you do for your children, you are appreciated. What you do for your spouses, you are appreciated. What you do for your families, you are appreciated. With that said, we always have to honor ourselves. We always have to take that time out to have that moment of self-care, self-love. We do not take that time often enough because we have so much going on. And it's really important for even these months of recognition that we do it outside of this month, especially on even a weekly or monthly basis, just making sure our mental health is up to our own comfort level, because when we women are together, we're able to help masses. With that said, I would like to bring Reverend Doretha Jackson um, for her to just give me her own perspective on what she think the pandemic has increased for women, the appreciation for women. Has the pandemic increased the appreciation for women, or has it decreased? Right? Are people appreciating their moms, their sisters, their nieces more, or is it the same?
Well, first of all, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Alima, for having me again. It is truly an honor, and I am an associate minister of Abyssinian Baptist Church of Newark, New Jersey, where Pastor Barry R. Miller is our senior pastor. And yeah, I'm just going to dive right in. Do I think the pandemic has increased the appreciation for women? Absolutely. Even my own perception as being a woman, when we look at, Alima, you said it earlier, when we look at the mothers, and let's not forget about the single mothers, the single women who are the main and sole breadwinners of the house. Now, they're not only faced with having to work and to maintain their home, but now they have to now become homeschoolers or educators and partnering with the teachers, women who are business owners, who have established, and they're entrepreneurs and have established their own businesses. And now the stress level has become escalated, as if there wasn't enough stress before COVID, trying to maintain their business and keep it together. And we also have the families where they've counted on the mothers to kind of keep it together. The mothers fix the lunch, get the children ready for school. They make sure the husbands are fine and ready to move forward. And then they themselves have to get to work. Now that whole norm process has been interrupted, and now the families who have, now that their life and norm has been interrupted, that mother now has to take on multiple roles. Then we have the women who are essential workers, such as in law enforcement, women who are nurses and doctors, attorneys and teachers. Their life is different, and we have a different appreciation for them, especially during this pandemic. And although this took a devastating toll on all of us, we still rise to the occasion as women so often do. So, you know, this this gave me a perspective, even with my own self, how much we can bear, how much we have been capable of handling it. And so there is a a newfound appreciation. We've always appreciated women and their strength and their courage. But during this pandemic and seeing all that we have endured, there is a newfound appreciation for them who have still rise above the occasion. We look at those who still brought us the news. We look at the women who took care of our elderly family members in the nursing homes, in the hospitals, even those who are in the home care field, home care nurses, the CNAs and the home health aides. They all played an intricate part in making sure that we kept it together. And the law enforcement, women in the law enforcement field, those in the corporate America who still had to run companies and organizations from home, and while being at home, still taking care of home as well as the children. So my perspective was definitely, and let's not forget about the female pastors who were senior pastors in their church. They definitely held it together. They are definitely the ones that, being a pastor, whether you're male or female, it's not just about yourself. It's you have a whole different family. So with dealing with the family, you're now have multiple an entire congregation to take care of and to make sure everyone is okay. You're taking care of the elderly. You're taking care of your youth in your congregation. You're taking care of your children. You're taking care of your own family. And there's very little time to even have self-care, but you're making sure that everyone else is okay in that capacity. So that definitely increased my perception, how this pandemic, how we look at some of how women have rise to the occasion.
Thank you, Reverend. And it's tough to say that we've put ourselves kind of on the back burner while taking care of
Mhm.
everything else. So we don't get that time to either self reflect or self care or just self meditate. To have that 5 minutes of quietness to just recollect,
Right,
and just, yeah, just to get that ease
right,
of mind to just
right.
relax.
I
Um,
mean, I know for myself, coming home from work was downtime. I would commute from work and it was an hour and 25 minutes. And it was the best hour and 25 minutes that I had because I'm de-stressing from work. I'm meditating and getting myself prepared when I enter into my home. But now with the pandemic and that we've been taken away from the workplace and now our workplace is home, you never really get that opportunity to have that downtime. And for some parents, and it's not a negative thing, but sending the children to school or to their daily activities, that was your moment to de-stress. That was your moment to have your moment of calmness, even for that hour and a half for the child who is in their sports, their other extracurricular activities. That was your moment, and that was now has been interrupted. So there's really a minimum amount of time to de-stress or to take care of yourself. So this is why this pandemic really changed my perspective on us as women.
so, with that said, we're looking at now a more religious perspective. Okay, why has the role of women throughout time left women of this. So basically, what has the previous generations, how have they left the women in our generation, in our time now, to kind of catch up? Even though we've most of us most for most of the generations we've been partially head of the household. Why is it now society's catching up that women are head of the household? And as we're seeing, it's blatantly clear during this pandemic that women are head of the household. We are the breadwinners. We are the ones that are running, the show, because we're managing everything on a day-to-day basis, right? Or it's equal in each other's household, or it's just, single parents. So why is it that, from the religious perspective, women are now catching up to that leading role within the household?
Okay. Well, from a religious perspective, the role of the women, I believe, has been, from when we look at it from a biblical standpoint, I believe that there's this misconception. When we hear the head of the household, I will use this as an example. When we have the man who has been called to be the leader or the head, that doesn't necessarily mean that the woman is the tail. It simply means that the woman is called to be his mate, his partner. And when we hear the word submissive, we also have this other misconception, because the Bible, when we highlight many of the women in the biblical times, and we hear the word submissive, we see this subservient woman, a woman who is subservient to her husband. But what it means is our role as what it meant was our role as a woman. We are submissive to our husband, who God has placed as our leader in the household, and we, along with him, are submissive in making sure that in other words, we are in a partnership. We are sharing the duties. We are not, you're not the head and I'm not the tail. We are partners, and we are in this marriage together because God joined us together. When the word of God tells us tell the women to love their husbands and love their children, when we love someone, we take care of them. So if when we hear the word submissive, we think of a subservient role, but submissive basically means that you're taking care of the affairs and the part of that you're supposed to take care of within this household, and I'm taking care of what God has asked me to take care of. So when we hear the word submissive, there's this misconception that women were not allowed to have a leadership part in the household, that their role was to be behind and not ahead. But the role basically just means that we are a team. We are here together. And when we look at the women in the biblical times, there were some women that were highlighted in the Bible. They made a huge difference in history as a whole. It opened up a world of possibilities of how we see women today. It opened up this and the same possibility is what we pass down to our young girls. And it's, there were countless women in the Bible that contributed to leadership. We had female judges. We had female leaders. We had female women that progressed within their household. We had women that displayed boldness, and women, they had an intriguing part in the Bible. So when we look at those women and we look at when we compare to today, we say, well, we really have progressed, and we have in some terms because of the misconception. We look that Jesus healed women. He defended women. He even depended upon women and their influence. And he built a genuine friendship with these women. So, when we think about the first century in Israel, the women were so undervalued, and it seemed as they were considered to be untrustworthy. They weren't even allowed to testify in court. They didn't have a voice. And as as we precisely, it was the women who actually gets to spread the news, because they always say we're the biggest gossipers. and there were so many accounts that the women were willing to when Jesus came on the scene, they were willing to be that one to listen. They were inclined to hear. They were inclined to follow. They were inclined to go back and tell the great news about the coming Messiah, and the Messiah that has healed and has defended and has befriended them. So as we look at the women, when we look at it, it was a woman that was first on the scene at Jesus, when Jesus died and rose again. It was a woman that was there on the scene first. It was a woman who went to tend to his body, even though there were numerous of men around Jesus. It was the woman. It was a woman that went and account of his resurrection. It was a woman that came back boldly, told a bunch of cowardly men, no pun intended, but there were women who took these bold steps with faith. They portrayed a step of boldness. It was the woman who went and broke all of the social norms. We think about the woman with the issue of blood in the Bible who broke all of the social protocols and all of the social norms because she just wanted to be healed. We think about Esther, Queen Esther in the Bible, who again broke the social norms and saw a need that was more important than the norm, and was bold and fast and prayed and saved, and through her boldness saved an entire nation. So if it was a part where the women were not allowed to be ahead, and have a partnership or have a say, we would not have had this display of boldness. When we think about Paul in the Bible, Paul was influenced he was more influenced by getting Jesus' words out rather than gender. And as a matter of fact, again, some of his messages that he had written in the Bible has been misconstrued, and there's this misconception that they walk away that women are not even allowed to be preachers. Women were not allowed to even speak in church, but that was that was a whole different dynamic and a whole different story behind that as their role in the church, when as a matter of fact, there was women that was very influential in Paul's life that taught him and guided him and encouraged him, corrected him. So Paul was more interested in carrying the word of Jesus than he was of gender. But getting back to the point, we have these misconceptions that women are to be submissive. It's more that we are partners. We are a team. And when we think of being the head of the household, just because I'm not male, and just because we have this misconception that some men feel inferior or intimidated by a woman that makes more than he does, and they fear of losing their role as being the head of the household. They fear of losing. It's about role and where I am on where I stand in society, because society say I'm supposed to be the head of the household. But just because If I make more than my spouse, that doesn't mean that he's not the head of the household. It just means that I make more than him, and that's for her, for both of us together, for him or myself. It's it's us, and we have these misconceptions that kind of misconstrue everything. So that's my take on, in that area of being the head of the household. Are we progressing? I feel that we are, and I think that comes from educating ourselves and helping our sisters and our brothers and those before, helping us to understand what subservient means and what being submissive is, and putting that into the correct content.
And the key point there, Reverend, is educating our women, or educating our communities, and informing them what exactly is the role, or should I say, educating our children, so then they are the ones that are able to change, and make whatever may be incorrect during this generation a better, or a more educated situation later on for them. Because even in Islam, even though it says women may not be the ones that can become the imams, but women are scholars, women are teachers, women are the ones that are assisting the men to become those imams, or distinguished scholars. So thank you. With that said, we're looking at now the change in our generation, right? Things in the 80s, the 70s have changed drastically for us now that are growing up in the 90s and the 2000s. Just looking at the differences, have you seen a large change, say from the baby boomers to now generation X, Y, the millennials? Have you seen the differences in the women's roles, or women's overall care for one another? Are women as a supportive, and empowered to empower each other?
Um, I am seeing a change like I've never seen before. And I don't know if this change is due to some of the life events that we have been facing over this past year. Um, for example, when we would think of the unfortunate death of Breonna Taylor, the unfortunate death of Brother George Floyd, and so many others before and after him, and some of the things, and just seeing the nation come together behind such tragedy. But when I look at women, it's unfortunate that I have to say that I personally have not seen the change that we need to see, especially with us sisters. I've unfortunately am not, when it comes to our young ladies, I'm seeing some disturbing things when it comes to it's maybe I'm old school, but just so the dynamics of even how we deal with relationships have changed. It seems like that so many are settling, and this is just my personal opinion and just my observation. And I think that we, at one point, we were on a great path where I always had this slogan that I'm more than what you see. My identity is not directly tied to someone else's identity. You can now know me as Doretha Jackson, and not, although I'm the wife of Deacon Sylvester Jackson, you know me more than, because sometimes if someone identify you, they know you as, oh, that's Ramik and Raheem's mom, or that's Deacon Sly's wife, or that's T's friend. You get what I'm saying? So a lot of times we lose ourselves. I find that women lose themselves um, in relationships. They lose themselves with in picking up someone else's identity. They lose themselves even trying to find themselves, but they don't know where to look. And you know, it's been disturbing. I feel that the sisterhood can be a little more cohesive. In spite of all the things that we've gone through, it's bad enough that um, we have um, this division, and we have this perspective that men have on us, and then when we come to each other, there's no cohesiveness in the sisterhood. And that's very disturbing. And what I mean by that is I think that we can do a lot better when we learn to support each other, when we learn to help each other, when we learn to look at each other and see ourselves, when we learn to meet sisters where they are. I think that we can get a little better. Have we progressed as far as more women in various roles? Absolutely. You know, I think if we looked back in the 80s, having a female, an African, you know, a woman of color, female vice president, that would have not even been thought of. And we're having female governors, senators, mayors, and I think that is a phenomenal tribe. We have more female principals and directors and CEOs and CCOs, and I think that that is phenomenal. Uh, do we still have a long way to go? Absolutely. Um, Even female preachers. I've now starting to see female rabbis. You know, it's we have really come a long way in breaking that glass ceiling with when it comes to females in various roles. We still have a long way to go. Female directors and movie directors and females are really taking off and going in a really great direction. And we have deans of colleges and presidents of colleges that are of the female gender. And I think that that is a great stride as well. We also, you know, when we are looking at some of the aspects of our roles in the pay scales, doctors and lawyers and we're still being compared to males rather than having uh, our own space, our own identity, rather than compare us, just make us equal. I think that, you know, we still have to work in that field. We still shouldn't be fighting for equality, for equal pay, to be viewed or to, you know, we should be treated exactly the same. Because if I'm up for a position for CEO and versus a male CEO, it should be based on my performance, what I do, and not my gender. And we're still, it seems like we're still kind of struggling in that area. And we need to, you know, kind of break some of those social norms that we're dealing when we're dealing with when we're coming into that role. But I still feel that we have, although we've made some great stride, but the cohesiveness of the sisterhood community can be a little tighter when it comes to sister on sister.
That is very true, Reverend, because I think one of the biggest things about our society is we ourselves have to help each other. And when you're able to help one person, it's like a chain. They're able to help someone else, and they're able to help someone else. So if we were a tighter unit, as sisters, then I'm sure there will be a lot of the biases or prejudices will most likely end, especially because when you stop being biased or prejudiced towards each other people will notice and they may stop as well, or you would hope it would stop. And I think one of the biggest things we have to look at is our accomplishments where we are giving back to our community. More women giving back to the community. I know for me, that's a big thing for me. I'm like, wait a minute, I have to help the youth. I have to help mentor the young men and women because I can't let them make the mistakes I made, right? Whether it was in college or whether it's in my decision in getting married. Don't settle when you're getting married. What you want, that's what you're going for. You know, when you're in school, definitely follow what you know. When you go to work, you're gonna enjoy doing it, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes it may not pay a lot. You may have to get another job, but at the end of the day, you love what you do. Or if you're going out for the money, then go out for the money. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to be okay with your decisions, and that's one of the biggest things. You go back and help your community. Are you seeing more women coming back and helping their community?
I see some from what from the ones that I have followed. I do see in the Newark community, for example, Reverend Louise Scott Roundtree. She's very active in the Newark community, where she's all over the place, and I say that in a positive way. When we say she's all over the place, I immediately think something negative, but she's all over the place in terms of making sure that the women's shelters are taken care of, the shelters are taken care of, the community churches are taken care of. There is weekly prayer that goes forth for the entire community, making sure that the people without addresses have food. And she's very hands-on in the community of Newark. And it's a community where she grew up. And to see her be so active and have such a passion for the community, it really resonates with me. And it really sets a precedent and an example that other women and young women who go away to college, that they will come back and give back. So I do see a few people, even in some of their faith-based communities in their church, they come and they share. So, it's wonderful to see, and I hope that we'll continue to see many more to follow that example. Is a beautiful example to follow. I am seeing some, and I believe, and I'm being very optimistic to say that there will be many, because we have so many young women that are going to college. And, and for those young women out there, if you feel that college is not for you, all is not lost, because college is not for everyone. There are all kinds of skilled trade schools. There are other avenues that you can take. And rather than follow your passion, follow your purpose, and understand it, and get with a mentor. Find a mentor, adopt a mentor if you have to, and they will help guide you to finding what your purpose is. We can be passionate about something, but that passion may not necessarily lead to a career. It can lead to a career, but find what your purpose is, and that will help you find your passion. Your purpose leads you to your passion. So it's always great to find out, have a mentor to get you to that goal. And once you find that and you find yourself getting successful, even if you're not a millionaire, or you can still give back to your community. You can still give back. You can turn around then and be a mentor to a young lady or a young man that's on the fence and says, I don't know if this college thing is for me, or I want to go to college, but I don't know what to do. And now you would be able to guide someone else. You would pay it forward. So, I just would love and encourage everyone to give back in their community.
And that's the one thing. It's not necessarily monetary give back, right? You can give back your time, your experience, or just you.
Right.
Sometimes it's not necessarily about finance or just, or what you can do, but you could give back your experience or your network.
Right.
Perhaps your friends may be able to come in and do a program. You guys collaborate
Mm-hmm.
and do programs. I know there's so many young
Right.
women that are looking forward to just mentors and okay, what makeup application or how to
Right.
dress for a professional interview or just overall
Right.
just hey, help me with answering my college application questions. I think that's
Exactly.
one of the biggest ways you can give back to your community, even if it's not your community, but give back to your family members so then they can continue to give back to others. And that cycle can get bigger and bigger and bigger as you guys are helping
Right.
each other. They can
Right.
help their friends, or their friends can help friends.
Right.
That's the biggest way we can give back. Because, and then again, like we talked the last time, your neighborhood, one
Mm-hmm.
parent can help another parent or another parent's
Right.
kids, all of that is all part of
Right.
giving back and helping to develop your community.
It is. I mean, become a neighborhood mom. I mean, my husband and I are the neighborhood parents. We are Mama and Papa J. And it's an honor. I remember the first time one of the young men, because we have two sons, and I remember the first time the young man that referred to me as Mama J, I was thinking, I'm not old enough to be Mama J. But then I started to embrace it. I embraced it because I saw that there is a group, a community of children in my community that see us as parents, that were comfortable with us. They have come to us for marital advice. They've come to us for relationship advice. They've come to us because they were afraid to tell their parents. So now they drag us into it. So now we have to come, be that support system to come with them to tell their parents something. We have been doctors, nurses, we've been lawyers, we've been policemen, and it's an honor. So become that neighborhood parent or that neighborhood auntie or that neighborhood uncle or that neighborhood grandma. My kids, our next door neighbor, they had neighborhood grandparents. They just made our neighbors, their grandparents. And I remember because my father is deceased, and before my mother had passed, my mother was in Mississippi. So when the kids had grandparents' day, they invited my next door neighbor and said, "These are my grandparents," and they owned them. They took ownership of them as their grandparents, and everyone in the community just knew that they were their grandparents, and that's, to me, that's an honor, and that's a way of giving back. And whenever a child or even a young adult view you as an aunt or an uncle or a sister, a cousin, grandparent, it's an honor. So that is also a way to give back, is get involved in your community, on your street, on your block. If you're in an apartment complex, in your building, make yourself known, because you could just be that personal savior for that person. You can be that person's angel and not even know it. Some of the lives that we've impacted is just rewarding. It's rewarding to me when I look at a young woman or a young man that have come through the thresholds of my door and have slept on my couch a couple of times, and we've encouraged and inspired and talked to their parents and talked to them and followed them and genuinely cared about them. And then to see where they're at now, it makes a huge difference. And that is so rewarding. Their success is just rewarding. This is what our society needs. We need more mothers in the community because we are nurturers. I mean, they need the fathers too, because the father is going to do what fathers do. But mothers are just naturally nurturers. And our community, the children and the young adults in our communities, we need that nurturing. So this is definitely a way to give back into our communities.
Thank you for that, Reverend. I think it's wonderful that we can share insight and help our community, especially the young. The young that are growing, that are looking to experience all the different things in that the world has to offer, and just to give insight, that nurture, that care, it helps. It goes a long way, because I had some strong women when I was growing up, besides my parents, that helped to mentor me, encourage me, especially to continue to pursue my education. So it's very important to be that for the youth within the community.
You know, Alima, you said something very profound. Strong women in your community that reached out to you. Those are the unspoken heroes, sheroes. Those are the people that we have a tendency to kind of put in the background and we forget about. But you are so right. It was the strong mothers of the community. Some of them had no children of their own, but they saw little old me and they invested time and just words of encouragement. I will never forget, and I tell this story every time. I will never forget, there was a mother in the church. One Sunday I came into church. I had this cute little dress. I was much thinner then, but I had this really cute little dress, and I guess the dress was just thin. And I never will forget when she said, "Come here, baby." And I go over to her. She said, "You look so pretty today." And I said, "Oh, thank you." And I'm just blushing and grinning. She says, "But the next time you put on a petticoat." I had no clue what a petticoat was. I didn't know it was a slip. And I didn't own a slip because, most of the dresses had the little line, and I'm thin. I'm like a size 1 or 2, maybe. I don't need those. I don't need all that. That's for old people to wear. But she took me and she, guided me. The next day, she came by my house and handed me this bag. And in the bag were 2 slips, a full slip and a halfway slip for a little short one. And I will never forget that. And I said, this is how we help young women to be women. She didn't ridicule me. She didn't sit back with the other mothers of the church and say, "Look at her, and she's walking around here and she'll have on no slip." She didn't do that. She showed me how to carry myself as a young lady. That was about, I'm going to say 30 years ago. I will never forget that gesture. I will never forget how she took the time to teach me. And not that my mother didn't teach me those things. It's just that, now I'm an adult with children of my own. I can wear what I want to wear. I can do what I want to do. But I had that because of how she approached me, how she took me and guided me, and took the time, not 1, but 2 slips. And, I was always conscious of that. Now, when I go to church, I'm conscious till this day of what I wear. And I'm conscious to make sure, is this too thin? I'm standing all in the light to make sure that my dress is thin and you can't see through it. I have several slips now, so those things are so important. We don't know that some of the smallest things that we do, but that mother of the church, and she's still alive today, she was very influential in my life. And when I disappeared off the scene, and I took a different path at one point, and what she did, she didn't ridicule me. She didn't She didn't, reprimand me. She sent me a card. And the words, and I still have this card to this day. I carry it in my Bible. And the words were, "You are missed. I'm always thinking about you and I'm praying for you. And I know that God will guide you back to where you need to be." And, and again, something as simple as a card to just say, "Hey, I miss you. I understand things happen, life happens, but just know that someone's out there that's thinking about you. Someone out there is praying for you." So it doesn't always have to be some hands-on things. You see a young lady that's struggling in your community, or a young man that's struggling in your community, send them a card. Stop by and just give them a nice gesture, and that will go a very long way. Here I'm 54 years old, and I believe I was in my 20s when I received that card, and that card still rang and resonates with me today. And because someone took the time to care about me, someone took the time to say, "Hey, I'm thinking about you." Someone took the time to encourage me to keep my head up. Someone took the time to care, and spoke in volumes. And this is what our community need. Those are those unspoken sheroes. Those are those unspoken women that we forget that, they are the foundation, and we are who we are because of their prayers. We're operating on what we are operating on because of the love that they have for us.
Very true. I know I remember my older cousin always being there, especially on my birthday, ready to do whatever for me. I remember my old school principal. Even one of my aunts that taught us the alphabets when we were younger. Right, you always remember the people that make an impact in your life. To my aunt that was always ready to take me out to get a new outfit for whatever birthday party we had to go to. Even though it was to babysit, but she was always willing to do whatever because I was doing good in school, right? That encouragement was always needed because my dad was a disciplinarian. They knew I had to, but at the end of the day, they wanted to reward me because I was doing well. So
Right.
and I thank you for bringing that up. That is the little things that we do that the youth or the children appreciate, and it stays with them in the long run.
Right.
I know our producer Hamjat wanted me to touch base on Meghan Markle, but I can't speak on a situation that I do not know. But from my opinion, all I can say is any woman going into a family, it is the man's responsibility to educate you on their family,
The
so
culture.
that you are prepared. On how you present yourself, and then as well as how you can handle whatever it is that they dish to you.
Right.
Because when you're not exposed to their culture or to whatever lifestyle they have, it is that spouse that can now prepare you. Whether he does or
Right.
he doesn't, then you need to prepare yourself for whatever it is that you
Right.
may be exposed to. And then
I
I just want to speak on mental health. I have been there. I think this has been one of the toughest years of my life. From giving birth to my son, who's on my lap now, to having to have my father in the hospital for almost a month. With COVID, us trying to figure out whether he was going to make it, us finding out that he's not going to make it. And we pray that, God does the best thing for him. Because my father was the type of man that if he had to be laying in some bed for somebody to take care of him, that would have been more painful for him. So God saw fit what was necessary for him, right? Or what would be the best um, the best path for him. But in that light, I've had the toughest year, especially dealing with my 3 children home, having to go to work and everything. Mental health is so severe. I still suffer from postpartum, but I do what I gotta do to keep going, and to maintain my health. So it's important for us all to seek help when it's needed. To think of removing yourself from your family or just from life. It's such a severe situation, and that when you do reach out for help should always be addressed. So for me,
Yes.
in that light, I plead, I urge Megan, you did a good thing in getting out of a situation that people did not see your value to give you the help you needed.
Right. And I watched the interview, and after seeing some of the reaction of from this interview, my heart first of all, my heart goes out to Megan, and because we don't know all facets of the story, but what I can say is dealing with the mental illness portion of it, for anyone to downplay it, for anyone to accuse her of lying. Mental illness is not something that someone would want. It's not something that someone's like, oh, well, I have that. But to suggest that she is lying, I thought that was very insensitive. I still think is very insensitive, and that comes from anyone who would suggest that any person that suffers from mental illness is lying, does not has no awareness of mental illness or the stigmas that are attached to them. That is one of the reasons why it's so important to educate and to have a conversation about mental illness and to gain knowledge about it. Mental health is a part of our own physical health. And just like you would take care of yourself if your cholesterol was too high, if your blood pressure was too high, if your diabetes, the sugar levels were through the roof or too low, if our heart wasn't functioning right, if our body aches in certain places, just like we would take care of our physical health, it's just as important to take care of our mental health. Wilhelmina, you were stating that you're still dealing with postpartum depression. My prayer is that you're still, if you can't get to someone in person, there are so many resources that you can reach out to and get that, join a support group via through social media. And there are various support group platforms that you really want to attach and connect yourself with, and try not to handle it yourself. And it is difficult during this pandemic. As we mentioned before, we as women, we take on a lot, even when we have the male in the household, because again, we are nurturers. And it has always been our role, because the men in the household have been busy trying to provide for the household, and we take care of the household. And in order to do that, sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves. I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I just a few days ago just went for my annual mammography. And when I was there, the doctor says, wow, you haven't been here in 2 years. And I'm thinking, I'm like, what do you mean I haven't been here in 2 years? Then I'm like, I'm like, oh, that was the year my husband was not well. Oh, but what about he had surgery that year. So we get so busy taking care of others that sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves. And we have to give ourselves permission to take a time out. We have to fit it in. It's so necessary to have that self help. It's so necessary to be selfish. It's so necessary to take, because if we don't take care of our mental health, then our physical health will quickly fail, because mental health, just like some of the physical health, has no sign. It has, sometimes our body lets us know when something is off, but it can happen so suddenly. And if we don't take care of it and we kind of brush it off and say, oh, I'm tired, I've been going through a lot, it's just, we have to know when something is completely off. We have to know when to say no. We have to know when to give ourselves permission to take a time out. It's okay to take a time out. I commend Megan, because they stepped away from all of this royalship because of her mental and emotional state, because of all of the unspoken suffering, and she's suffering in silence. And then you have, when you're in the limelight, I remember when they decided to separate and walk away from all of this, we didn't know the backdrop of that story. And now that we do, and we find that mental health, her mental illness plays a role in this, it's time for her to take that time out. It's time for her to say, hey, I need to take care of me. And not only is she, as a woman, dealing with her mental instabilities, but she's also dealing with some racism. It's systemic. It's contagious. It's a pandemic within her in her circle now, and it's just there. Let's just keep this real. It's there. We know what it looks like, and we know when something doesn't feel right, and we know when it's directed towards us. So as a woman, she has a lot, and now that she's pregnant again, there's more than just hormones that's in play, but now her mental health is now interrupted, and has been, and that is something that's so crucial that she needs to be on top of. In addition to her physical health, now she has to make sure that she's on top of, and we can only pray that she's getting the help that she needs for her mental well-being. I pray that any woman who's going through postpartum or any form of depression, anxiety, anything that's imbalanced, that's unstable, I pray that you will seek the help. When you know that you're out of your character, and I know that we're wearing masks, we're isolated from our normal life, we want to make sure that we are connecting ourselves with a resource or someone. Have someone that's willing to listen to you, to hear you. Because sometimes when we talk about it, when we have that conversation, when we tell someone, hey, I don't know what this is, but I know that I need to get it off my chest. I know that I need to, I'm feeling anxious, and sometimes I find myself getting filled up, and I find myself crying, and I don't know why. Our norm has been upset. Our life as we once knew it has been interrupted. We don't, and truth be told, even though we have the vaccine, and even though we're kind of turning the curve, we have no idea when we're going to get back to our normal life as we once knew it. Because right now, our new norm that we're living in is not one that we know, and leaves very little room for us to take that self-care time. But we have to find what works, and we have to make it happen. We have to give ourselves permission to say, I need to take care of me, because I'm no good to anyone else unless I get myself better. So seek the help because help is there. Therapy, counseling, support groups, they are there. We even, as a matter of fact, we even have a mental wellness support group night. We do it virtually through Abyssinian Baptist Church. We do it Facebook Live every Thursday night at 8:30. I'm sorry, at 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. every Thursday night. Hope and Healing Mental Wellness Ministry. We just have conversation. We It's a judgment free, stigma free platform where we're openly we share and learn and encourage our peers and we have various topics that we talk about. Well, Amina, I'm very sorry to hear about your dad, and we'll pray that God's comfort will continue to abide within you and your family. And I'm also, I'm gonna always be concerned, and I pray that you will continue to seek some therapy and talk with someone regarding your postpartum.
Oh yes, thank you, Reverend Jackson. I am working through it all, and I chuckle because it's a lot. And we as women, we always put ourselves in the back burner until it's to the point where it's like, oh my God. Ugh. So, and I got to that point, but yes, I am working through it with a counselor, just to talk it out because it's been a lot from my dad to my cousin. It's just been a lot of loss, and then right after having a baby, so I know exactly where Megan is coming from. On that note, I feel for her, and it's hard sometimes when you can't go get help yourself and you have to depend on somebody. Like for us, we can get help ourselves. She was dependent on others to get her the help. And I think that's the part that was a disadvantage to her. So I'm glad that Harry was able to step up, and be the man for his family, by helping his wife, because of course, his son was going to need his wife, as he was in raising him, and then now them having another. And that's the one thing men will never understand, the female psyche, while pregnant, and then after giving birth, men will never understand the impact on childbearing on the woman's mind as well as body. I am just blessed that we were able to sit here and inform, and educate our community. Thank you so much, Reverend
Thank
Jackson,
you
for
for
being
having
with
me.
us today.
Thank
And we
you.
thank Hamdat as well, Sierra Cast TV, for always willing to help us share the message, to our community. Thank you.
Thank
Everyone, please
you.
continue to watch and listen.
Thank you.